Hi, everybody. Let's talk about the most popular forms of measurement in the industry today. What are we measuring? Campaign measurement comes in a number of forms. So let's talk about the different versions, how they can be used by brands to understand their audience and consumers, what their advantages are, as well as their drawbacks. But first, a brief history of measurement. I like to review this because I think it's fun to see how far we have come and how long we've been using some of the measurement solutions that currently exist. So in the 60s, the concept of reach and frequency was introduced as a way to really take a look at how TV advertising was effective for brands. This actually began and became the foundation for what is still currently the currency for TV measurement, which is the Nielsen Gross Ratings Point. It's still in use today. It's actually a really exciting time to think and talk about TV measurement because it's going through a lot of disruption. We can get into more on that later. But the goal with this is the reach of a given audience as an effectiveness measure. And it was also very easy to apply this to radio as well as print. In the 70s, we were introduced to brand tracking as well as consumer surveys. This gave marketers an idea of how advertising affected a brand's perception and messaging and alignment for the consumer, and then were able to track it over time so that they were able to observe changes based on changes in messaging. The 80s, this got really exciting as we start to see dramatic leap forward, specifically in technology. The integration of actual sales data from retailers, specifically in grocery stores, because people began to scan barcodes. This made purchase data available in a meaningful and scaled way for the very first time. Packaged goods marketers were able to develop these media mix models that were able to show the relative contribution of various medias to the incremental sales that they were driving. So was TV effective at driving incremental sales? Now is digital effective at driving incremental sales? In the 2000s is when we really started to see the inclusion of digital. As it would make sense, we saw online search, display, and video advertising really start to come into a variety of measurement solutions at this point. MMM started to pick these things up shortly around that time. And in the 2020s, things have gotten complex. We consume media in ways that are totally foreign and strange to the solutions that the measurement solutions that were in place in the 80s. The media landscape, it just requires additional tools to help marketers understand not only the relative contribution of the media investment, but also how to bring these tactics together, these strategies together to synergize and make them complementary to each other. Measurement needs to be unified. And we're actually starting to see the first steps of this in measurement today. It's a really exciting time to be a part of the industry. All right, there are many, many, many ways to measure, and we will not cover them all in this course. We're going to cover some of the big ones, the most common used in the industry. And I always like to think about this from where we are at in the marketing funnel. So here on the left, you'll see the marketing, the funnel position. It starts at the top and then moves its way down through the bottom. And we'll talk. So at the top, you're gonna see measurements for reach and things like audience penetration. So this is going to be how many people saw the ad, how many times did they see the ad. Of my target audience, what percentage of them have I reached with my campaign this quarter? In the middle, you're going to see more consideration level metrics. So this is attention. This is going to be measurement related to both messaging as well as persuasion. This is going to be, information retention. Do you remember seeing the ad? Purchase consideration. Are you interested in this sort of product? And then finally at the bottom, you're going to see some more outcomes-based measurements. So this is action response. Did you click? Or sales response. Did you buy? As we get into the measurement methodologies or the approaches for each of these different funnel steps, look at how much variation there is. Look how many different ways there are to measure each of these things. And it creates for some really wonderful conversations. It creates for some really wonderful innovation. It does create the opportunity for quite a bit of confusion amongst brands, especially those who or anyone who is working in the industry who doesn't have a deep understanding of the way measurement is executed could quickly start to get into some of these things and not exactly understand what they're talking about, which is why it is so important for people in media, for people in advertising to have a baseline understanding of measurement, and why it's so important for brands to have measurement staff at their companies so that they're able to become experts on these and how they understand the effectiveness of their media. All right, but just to grab a couple, two examples from the slide and kind of double click into them a little bit. Let's talk about TV ratings. So it's the very first item at the top of the funnel. Nielsen has been the market leader in this place since the 60s, and the technology that they utilize has really advanced over time. So Nielsen at the moment has these people meters installed in homes. It connects directly to their cable box. People must select who they are from the screen. It is Cole who is watching TV, and then they're able to watch TV like normal. And this has been the source of truth for TV measurement for years, and the technology has evolved, but the approach has been very similar. A panel of representative households that are then able to be reflective of the broader TV consumption across the country. Now, let's take a look at sales response real quick at the other end of the funnel. Look how many ways there are to do this. This list creates for some wonderful, very intense, sometimes esoteric conversations about the appropriate methodologies for arriving at the highest quality version of this metric, but it does get rather complex rather quickly. Given that there are so many ways to solve these problems, it's probably no surprise that there isn't a single standard for the industry. And the lower in the funnel you go, the easier this is to see. So when you're looking at survey responses from 100 CMOs, you can really see the variety based on the solution. We do see more mature products such as MMM and brand trackers definitely have earned more of a solid foundation from CMOs, a lot more extremely reliant scores on these types of solutions. Newer solutions, they're earning more of a don't rely status. Though they can be very powerful, they just aren't as deeply tested and not as deeply trusted. And to even further fragment this problem, tools aren't even used in the same ways consistently. So some tools are very much favored in planning or allocation, while others are more used for optimization, so making changes tomorrow to the campaigns they are running today. MMM clearly has the top spot when it comes to planning, and Experiments definitely has a lead when it comes to the optimization game. And then finally, the way the solutions are used within organizations changes over time. Only 9% of CMOs say that they're using measurement tools very consistently. All right, I think I've made my point. You get it. This is a very complicated area and arena, and that's why expertise is so important, and that's why I'm thrilled you're all taking this class. Let's get a little bit of a deeper look at some of the most common measurement solutions today and start to demystify this a little bit. All right, brand trackers. These are, or also known as lift surveys. Brand lift surveys. This is very much a staple for mid-funnel metrics. And essentially, it is a consumer taking a survey on behalf of the brand. And the questions are usually around awareness. Do you remember seeing this ad? Consideration. Are you in market for this category of products? Message association. Do you relate this product to this particular market? Is this product family friendly? Is this product luxury? Is a very good messaging association question. These are some of the common questions that you get in these types of surveys. Purchase intent would be another very popular one. These help advertisers assess if their message is memorable, if the ads are encouraging more consideration or purchase of the product. They can easily be compared just simply over time, their responses, or compared against a control population in order to be able to show that a campaign drove lift in one of these metrics. With the purchase intent being most popular near the bottom of the funnel, though it's important to note, they don't track whether it was actually purchased, but if the user at the time of the survey had the intent to make a purchase of the product. Results from these, as you can imagine, are very interesting. They remain one of the best ways to get direct feedback from the consumer. Especially when you compare these with some very thoughtful and interesting segmentation questions. So, are you in the market for this category of products? Are you considering purchasing any product within this category? Or do you consider yourself, would you self-select into a certain segment or target group? Often though, it is actually hard to take action based on the answers you'd receive from one of these trackers. If your message, for example, isn't resonating with your target audience, well, you know you need to make a change, but it can be very unclear what the path is to actually improve that message with that target group. All right, A/B testing and experimentation. Many marketers are going to rely heavily on A/B testing or test versus control experiments. Different flavors of kind of the same idea. A/B testing is often more around which messaging is going to yield more clicks or responses or more time on page. This can also get down to color schemes or the type of button that someone has to click on a website. With randomized control trials, which is a common way for establishing whether the ad drove a lift over the control population. In other words, did the ad drive your exposed population to purchase more than they otherwise would have, is the question. And this is often more popular for evaluating creative or whether a target audience was effective or this messaging was effective with a target audience. Marketers definitely appreciate the simplicity and clarity of A/B tests. I think the basic understanding of how these are executed is pretty well known. However, the approach has some important limitations that everyone needs to be aware of. A scientific experiment, especially in advertising, is going to have two main features. And one is a well-defined target population. Who is it that we are trying to reach with these ads? And two is going to be a precise control group who isn't allowed to see the ad. And in a lot of cases, this can be a very heavy test. It can be technically difficult to execute or just simply very expensive, especially for larger, more established brands who need to be able to detect very small lifts because so many people are purchasing their product already that a significant lift, a major lift, is just not realistic. Very, very small lifts, sometimes 1-2%, are needed to be detected, and that yields for a very expensive test. Quality of these tests is always a concern. Is there any control contamination? Is there any biases in the methodology? Or even simply, is the method that I am seeing on social platform A the same as the method that I'm seeing from a programmatic ad on the open web? The answer is likely not. It's very likely that those are separate methodologies that can cause issues when trying to compare the lift from one to the other. However, the power of this, the understanding of true incremental sales. In other words, did my ad cause someone to buy who otherwise wouldn't have bought? It's very powerful. It's absolutely worth pursuing. It's just not an easy road. All right, let's talk about MMM, marketing mix modeling. It's a very powerful tool, allows advertisers to compare TV, digital, print, radio, in-store promotion, many other forms of marketing signals into a single methodology. It can even consider the weather, gas prices, and inflation. It allows for really sophisticated scenario testing, such as if I move budget from one bucket to another, what would have occurred? And it can accommodate for the moves of competitors. My competitors have moved into a new geographic or they launched a new product line. How has that impacted my sales? It's a very powerful tool and it's a very common approach to an outcomes-based measurement solution. All right, sounds great. We should just all use this. But really, it has, like everything else, it has limitations. It can be very slow. A small brand might get a single read per year. A very large brand might only get them quarterly. And often it lacks granularity. Results are highly aggregated and there's no ability to provide more nuanced optimization insights to improve the campaigns that you're currently running. So because of these limitations, it's actually more often used for planning and allocation rather than optimization. So in other words, it's how much do I spend on digital, not how do I get the most out of my digital? How is my digital working as well for me as it could with this exact same budget? MMM is more about the allocation portion of this. How much should my total digital budget be? All right, here's actually some of these points on MMM again. It's a very powerful solution and a very common one, so I want to make sure to give it its due. MMM, it often focuses on data at the store level. It's important to note that there's not persons level data in MMM. It's going to be far more aggregated than that. So Cheetos, as an example brand, might be able to see how much they sold at a Safeway in Denver, but they will have no idea who it is who's making those purchases. All right, multi-touch attribution, also known as MTA. This is a bit newer than MMM, and it definitely has less of a track record. But many of the top consumer brands in the world are using this to optimize their media, allocate their media, and help understand insights, multi-platform insights against creative as well as audience targeting. MTA brings the promise of attributing value to every single impression back to any purchase or a fraction of a purchase that has been influenced by that impression. As you can imagine, that gets really complicated. Many common forms of marketing are also not measurable this way, such as in-store promotions are very hard to understand through an MTA model. Even digital, where MTA really hits its stride, not all digital impressions are often measurable with an MTA solution. So major social platforms are a common example of this. Many times their impressions remain untrackable within an MTA solution. And this is due to the walled garden status that many of these platforms maintain, where they'll allow all of the data to come in, but data very rarely moves out or leaves the walls, making MTA not a right fit for measurement on those platforms. MTA, a little bit more on MTA once again, since it's a powerful and exciting solution. MTA-driven insights are very granular and they're very easy to act upon. Especially as the solution starts to evolve into the more advanced machine learning or potentially real-time optimizations, where theoretically you can improve performance by a currently running campaign by automatically rebalancing media cross-platform against the highest performing channels. Very powerful for those who are able to actually execute at those sorts of levels. However, the promise of holistic measurement is rarely achieved, and with privacy changes in digital, it's actually becoming even harder to see this as a viable solution for most brands. Most MTA solutions actually also don't look at incrementality, so there's a limited number of forms of media that they're actually able to capture. And honestly, it's still a relatively new measurement solution, especially when you compare it to something like MMM. Many prominent MTA companies have been in existence for under a decade, and while it's exciting and powerful, many marketers will find it difficult to put significant budgets against solutions that they don't fully and deeply trust. All right, that actually wraps this section, so please check out the next video where we will wrap up the very first section of this course. Thank you all so much.